bet you thought you'd pack that.
Thank you, darling.
What the hell's a passport for? You're not fleeing the country, are you?
Oh, he asked me to take it. I imagine it's for some variation of the Shalabat test. Well, some people seem to think you need them to get over to the other world.
But you don't.
Of course not, darling.
It sounds an out-and-out quack. I don't know why he's asked you, an unbeliever. I think you're mad to go.
I'm not an unbeliever, I'm a non-believer. I have an open mind. Oh, darling, let me enjoy it. I've never been a well-known author before.
Oh.
And besides, he's paying me £25 for the weekend.
Guineas.
We might blow some of it on a few days in Wales. I don't have to lecture for a fortnight.
Oh, we could look up the Hamiltons. You're sure the university doesn't mind?
Well, of course not. It's my subject. Well, I think I'll take the tape recorder as well. Well, you never know. There might be some things that go bump in the night.
Do you really think it's fair to take his money? I mean, I bet his theories are quite potty.
Where are those new cassettes? Oh. He wants me to observe what he calls some psychic phenomena. Well, he's read Frontier, so he knows where I stand. I have an open mind.
I wish we knew more about him.
Oh, Miss Sarah put her toys away. Well, it's time for some coffee. Shall I make some?
It's obviously no use my saying anything. You'll do what you want in the end, anyway.
I wish you were coming with me.
So do I, darling.
She looks quite harmless, but then they all do.
Would you like me to wear my hospital whites, Doctor? I've brought them with me.
No, I think not. You should be as unobtrusive as possible. She's an extremely brilliant woman, except for this lack of balance. You'll have to keep your wits about you.
No need to worry, Doctor. We had all types at Broadhurst.
I should relax if I were you. You're not likely to get much peace in the next few nights. By the way, if you make a success of this, I shan't fail to mention it to the Mental Health Foundation. It could lead you to some lucrative work. They're frequently in touch with wealthy parents who have non-volitional patients.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Erickson.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Dr. Pickering.
Oh.
Thank heavens I found you. We were meant to be meeting at Harwich.
Yes.
There's been a mix-up, I'm afraid. You see, I had meant to be coming back from the continent today, and I planned to meet you at Harwich and take you back with me. But in fact, I got back last night. The car is waiting at Ipswich, by the way.
Where are we going?
Oh, didn't I say in my letter?
No.
I have this place at Bassett. It's rather out in the wilds. The suffocating in Suffolk, as some of the wits put it.
Tell me, Dr. Pickering, do you have a ghost here?
Not really. Not yet. Oh, there you are, Dawson. This is Mrs. Erickson.
Good evening.
Good evening, miss.
Dawson looks after us.
It's certainly isolated.
That's the reason I bought the place. When Mother died, years ago now, I felt the need to get away from everyone. No intrusive factors. The village is nothing to speak of, just a sub-post office and store. Half the cottages are empty now. No industry, and the land isn't much good. Oh, you might take the things up, Dawson.
Now, sir?
Yes, I think so. We'll be all right for the moment.
I take this, miss.
Thank you.
Shall we go in?
Yes. Is Dawson local?
No, he isn't actually. Sit down. Let me get you a drink. What will it be?
Do you have a scotch? Nothing with it.
Of course. He's a wiry little fellow, isn't he? It gives me a sense of security. By the way, there's another security arrangement I should warn you about. We leave Caesar loose in the house at night. He's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Vicious brutes. There have been several break-ins in the neighborhood recently. That's why I got him.
Thank you.
You're quite self-contained up there with your own bath. No need to stir until I call you.
I've never seen a Ridgeback.
Well, they're quite noiseless, you know. That's why they're so dangerous. On you before you know it.
Oh, don't worry, I won't stir.
Good health, Mrs.
Cheers.
Helps to relax you after that filthy journey.
I should rather like to know why you've invited me here, Doctor.
May I say how great an admirer I am of yours? I thought The Unknown Frontier was a fascinating book.
Thank you. But a lot of the credit should really go to my department. Perhaps I should be frank and explain that I am not an authority on psychic phenomena. We have continuing studies on ESP and telepathy, of course, at the university. But I'm afraid I'm one of the skeptics.
But that makes you the perfect witness. Your work has equipped you to understand the nature of psychic experiment. Anyone can persuade someone who wants to believe.
Well, I hope I won't disappoint you.
You see, I believe we can communicate with the dead in a completely new way.
Sounds an out-and-out quack.
Oh, really?
Please hear me
The
out.
words you used in your letter were scientific experiment.
Oh, I don't mean the orthodox quackery that goes on. Voices from the past, ectoplasms, that kind of thing. I mean something completely original. It was your book that first gave me the idea that communication could exist other than by speech and visual method.
Oh, but I've never suggested that communicating with the dead is possible.
And then you were on that commission that examined the behavior of football crowds, where one of your findings was that there was a possible chemical means of communicating hysteria.
In any case, I'm an empiricist. That sort of stuff has no place in my work.
Well, would you accept the premise that methods of communication could exist? After all, you have that in your book. Mood transmission in rats, you gave as an example. And then, let us assume that there is, in fact, an afterlife. After all, half the world believes in this. One could safely assume that half the scientists do, too. I want you to acknowledge the possibility of dualism.
I can't. I don't believe that mind and matter are divisible.
Many leading psychologists do. You're being arrogant, Mrs. Erickson. Let us assume, for the sake of my theory, that they are right, that we have a mental span of existence separate from our physical span. And if we end a physical life by an act of violence, which is abnormal, then the possibility of death...
I'm sorry, Dr. Pickering. The whole business is completely outside my sphere of interest. I can't even go a little way with it. You've really got hold of the wrong person. Why don't you get in touch with the Committee for Psychical Studies? Or publish a paper, perhaps?
But I'm a scientist like you. Most of their experience is hallucinatory. They're only interested in mediums and the like, a lot of whom are fraudulent. They're mixed up, don't you see?
Dr. Pickering,
Please, let me go on. I have 5 scientific points to make. 1, we have the possibility of a chemical means of communication. 2, we have dualism, separate lifespans for body and soul. Now, I want you to consider my 3rd premise.
I bet his theories are quite potty.
Is there a train back to Liverpool Street tonight?
No, I'm afraid there isn't. Nothing till the morning. All I want to do is to substitute method for madness. I had hoped... Another drink.
Oh, no, thank you.
A nightcap, perhaps.
I won't, if you don't mind. I'm rather tired. Could we leave it now?
Yes, of course. I'll show you your room.
Thank you.
You might ponder on what I've said. In the morning, perhaps.
Perhaps.
You could stay on. I'd pay you, of course.
I'm afraid pressure of work.
But you have no lectures for a fortnight.
No, but... How did you know that?
Didn't you say so on the train? Up here. That's Dawson's room. This used to be the nursery. In fact, Dawson has the old nanny's quarters. He's there if you need anything. There we are. Plenty of hot water if you feel like a bath. I see Dawson's brought your case up. This is what remains of the nursery. It was here when I bought the place. I've become quite attached to it. Do you like tea or coffee in the morning?
Well, tea, if there's any going. I don't mind.
No, there's always tea.
I'm sorry I can't be of any help to you. I know what it is to get obsessed with a theory, but it would be completely pointless.
Please don't worry about it. Sleep well.
Good night. Dr. Pickering, what are you doing?
It's all right, Mrs. Erickson. I'm just going to let Caesar off, you see.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd rather have it unlocked.
Please don't worry. It's a precaution we take with all our guests.
Oh, please, if you don't mind.
I wish we knew more about him.
She's quite calm at the moment. I've been trying to interest her in something. Tomorrow will be the testing time. She'll be up early, I expect.
She's having a bath.
Yes. That's right. She's having a bath. You might as well turn in, I think.
Thank you, Doctor. Good night.
If things go very badly and I have to use narcosis, then there'll be no problem about your day off. You better wait in the living room. I'm in here, Mrs. Erickson.
Good morning.
I hope you slept well. There's bacon here and an egg, if you'd like it.
I'd rather like to ring my husband, if I may.
I'm afraid you can't do that. The lines have been down since the storm. They usually take a day or two.
Oh, well, never mind. I'll walk down to the village. It's not far, is it?
Do have some breakfast.
Well, I'm not really hungry, but I would like to phone my family and check on a train. It's left at the bottom of the drive, isn't it?
I'm afraid I can't allow you to do that.
What do you mean?
There is a parallel, you know, in pathology. For example, the necessity of sterilization in the operating theatre. If we're to explore some means of extrasensory communication, it's best that our mind should be immune. Do you see the point?
I'm sorry, Dr. Pickering. I thought I made myself clear last night. I'm really not interested in what you're trying to prove. I'm going home this morning. In fact, I'll say goodbye now and pick up a taxi from the village.
I can't allow you to go.
Will you open the door for me, please, Dawson? What the bloody hell is going on here? Open the door. Will you tell your servant to let me out?
I can't do that, Mrs. Erickson. In the interests of science. I beg you not to get excited. I had hoped that you'd be interested in my work, Mrs. Erickson, for its interest alone. That's why I asked you down here. I'm completely dedicated, you see. Do come and have some breakfast, Mrs. Erickson. Surely it would be better if we tried to discuss the situation rationally.
You'd better do as he says, miss.
Please, Mrs. Erickson. You'll only get hurt, Mrs. Erickson.
I'd rather you stayed out of this, Doctor. Please put it down, Mrs. Erickson. Don't struggle, miss, please.
You see, there's absolutely no point in getting aggressive. Now, will you promise to behave?
I'm sorry, miss.
Oh, let go of my arm. You're hurting me.
I think she'd better go up to her room until she's calmed down.
Will you let go? Let go. Oh.
You'd better do as he says, miss. Lie down for a while.
It's all right, Dawson. I'll go. It's only Mrs. Tyndall.
Help! 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 Please go to the police!
Please don't stop her, Dawson. Let her make as much noise as she likes.
My name is Erickson. Please tell the police.
Good morning, Mrs.
Your
Tyndall.
order, Doctor.
Thank you.
You didn't say about the cheese, Doctor. I put in New Zealand.
Thank you, Mrs. Tyndall.
Go to the police. My name is Erickson. Tell the police I'm being kept here.
I'm afraid we have a rather difficult patient, Mrs. Tyndall.
And half make a fuss, don't they? It wasn't like that in my husband's family. Had to be put away. I want to do away with folk when they get that bad, really. I mean, it'd be a mercy for the poor souls.
We must never give up hope, Mrs. Tyndall.
Oh. Right, well, cheery bye then, Doctor.
Goodbye.
Please help me. My name is Erickson. I'm being kept here against my will. Please go to the police.
When the police find me, you'll face charges. My husband knows where I've gone.
He knows that you went to Harwich and that you took your passport.
When I don't get back, he'll call the police.
I don't think he will, Mrs. Erickson. You see, he'll have this cable from Amsterdam saying that you've gone on to a conference and telling him not to worry. One of my correspondents is sending it. He thinks it's part of a transastral experiment.
Well, there's one thing wrong with your elaborate plan. If ever I'm away from home for more than a day, I always ring my daughter in the evening to say good night.
They'll think you're busy. And even if it's true, you could be anywhere, don't you see? They won't know where to look.
Well, they will soon. Whoever came in that car will have heard me.
I shouldn't count on that, Mrs. Erickson.
Well, someone will remember me from the train.
Can you remember the faces of the people who travelled with you a week ago?
I think you're mad to go.
Why are you so arrogant, Mrs. Erickson?
I'm not arrogant. I'm bloody furious.
You're arrogant because you won't even consider my theory seriously. You won't even listen to me.
There are hundreds of psychologists with expensively trained minds throughout the world's universities who are consistently exploring telepathy and psychic matter. And you expect me to take your half-baked ideas seriously?
Probably as arrogant as you. People from the leading universities of Europe thought that the sun went round the earth until Copernicus proved it otherwise. Many leading scientists didn't know why the tide went in and out until Galileo...
All right. You've made your point.
Now, what I plan to do is to explain each step in my theory and then to test the hypothesis with a scientific experiment. What we lack, of course, is any tradition of observation, but even from lay experience we can make a few premises. I told you the first last night. 1, extrasensory communication. 2, dualism. Now, I want you to consider my third point, which is this. Throughout history and mythology, the ghost has always been represented as a figure of tragedy. There are no happy ghosts, because they are spirits whose lifespan has been brutally ended.
Here you are.
Ah. Is it recent?
Last summer, we went to Devon. Please take it. I suppose the press will have to be brought in.
Oh, not at this point. We'll alert all districts to begin with and check the accident boards. And of course we'll follow up the cable from Amsterdam. Then if we still have no luck, we'll review the situation. Let me give you some comfort, Mr. Erickson. In my experience, and I've been in the force now for nearly 40 years, 8 out of 10 persons reported missing invariably turn up again during the first week.
It's 5 days now.
You've hardly eaten anything for 2 days, miss.
Dawson, he's told you I'm mad, hasn't he? What do I have to do to convince you I'm quite sane? He's keeping me here to prove some crazy theory. Well, do I look mad, Dawson?
You're not mad, miss. You're just not very well at the moment, that's all.
But suppose you're wrong, and I'm right. You'll go to prison as an accessory. Well, do you realize that?
Everything will be all right, Mrs. Erickson. You see, I've looked after lots of patients. You can always tell the ones that are going to get well. I've worked at Broadhurst. I've seen the worst.
Broadhurst? But they know me there. I did 3 months postgraduate work there before I went up to London. I know them all. Well, Copeland and Wallace and Mrs. Chambers. Well, ask any of them. They'll tell you who I am.
I know you were there. Dr. Pickering's got the papers.
What papers?
Well, that's where they put you when you did away with your child.
I don't know what papers you're talking about. But if there are any papers, he must have forged them. He's planned everything. The whole thing. Well, don't you see that?
Please lie down, miss. Try and get some rest.
Dawson? Dawson? Well, he's a liar, Dawson. He forged those papers. Well, I'll ask him to show you the committal certificate. Oh, God. I asked to see you because I've been thinking about what you've said so far. I think there could be something in your theory after all.
That's splendid, Mrs. Erickson.
So I'll stay another week, as you suggested, and I'll give you all the help I can, as long as you let me telephone my family and explain I'm all right. Well, they'd be terrified, don't you see that? My daughter is only 8.
They got your cable.
Well, they won't believe it. They'll know something is wrong.
You can write a letter tonight, and Dawson can post it tomorrow.
Well, if I could just speak...
No, I'm afraid that's quite out of the question. I don't want you to speak to anyone. For the purpose of our work, I want your mind to be isolated, that is, only in contact with mine. Have you writing materials with you? Good, well, that's settled then. Now, I want to proceed to my next premise, which is the most important. You will agree that people have always shivered when they've seen a ghost. Their knees knocked. They've said afterwards they were shaking. Others have been more specific. They've mentioned that when spirits were present, it was distinctly colder. The temperature was lowered. Clammy is a word frequently used. You agree so far?
It's obviously no use my saying anything. You'll do what you want in the end, anyway.
Do you agree?
Well, it's not scientific. But I agree that's what people say.
So, now, this is important, Mrs. Erickson. Because cold is a constant factor on almost every reported occasion, I submit that a spirit needs energy to manifest itself. It requires the heat in a room. It's quite logical, don't you see? We require energy for thought, which is a purely mental process. A scholar can be exhausted at the end of a day. He hasn't moved, but he's used energy.
I don't see where the communication comes in.
It never has before. That is why my theory is original. Putting it simply, a ghostly mind, a mind removed from a body with no heat of its own, needs the heat of a room or someone in the room before it can manifest itself. The trouble is, I've spent months with dictionaries of national biography, and I've been unable to find one scientist who studied ESP and telepathy who's yet died by violent means. That's my great problem. A violent death is necessary before there is a need to communicate.
If that is the case, which I doubt, you can hardly put your hypothesis to the test, Dr. Pickering.
Quite so. But if, on the other hand, one of us was to die by violent means, we could verify the theory immediately.
It's hardly worth your committing suicide. No. You're going to kill me, aren't you? That's why you tricked me into coming. Why I can't tell my family where I am.
What you're saying is quite ridiculous.
You're lying.
Please sit down, Mrs. Erickson. You're getting hysterical.
But it won't work. The police will be looking for me now. Dawson. He wants to kill me, Dawson.
Now, don't take on
I
this.
tell you he does, Dawson, to prove some potty theory. Well, can't you see he's the one that's mad? Dawson, help me.
What has happened? What have you done, Dawson?
She's fainted, Doctor.
Is she settled?
Yes, Doctor.
I gave her 2 cc's of sodium amytal. You know how to give intramuscular injections.
Yes, of course.
It's a distressing case. If I find it impossible to continue the present treatment, you won't lose financially. No need to worry about that.
Yes, Doctor.
Incidentally, you can have your day off tomorrow. I'll continue the present treatment.
I'd rather stay with her, Doctor, if you don't mind, while she is so upset.
But I'm continuing the narcosis, so there's nothing to see to. You can go after breakfast. There's a bus at 9:15.
Very well, Doctor, if you feel you can manage.
Of course I can, Dawson. That's settled then. Good night.
Good night, Doctor. You know, miss, this'll never do. You've got to keep your strength up.
You're fine. You're fine.
You have a nice long rest, then you'll feel better. It's my day off today. If you're a good girl, I'll bring you back a present.
It's Dawson. Don't go. He wants to kill me, so...
Now, calm down, miss. You know that's nonsense.
Dawson, don't leave me.
You'll be quite safe with the doctor.
He's not a doctor. He wants to murder me. You mustn't leave me. Don't go, Dawson.
Calm down, miss. Have a nice rest. I'll be back before you know it.
Dawson, don't go.
Oh, yes. A lot goes on in the village in the summer. But you won't be here to see it, I dare say.
I don't know, it depends.
Depends on what? Oh, regular mystery man, aren't you? Just like him. I can't see the sense in having that great barn of a place, can you? Funny sort of nursing home, only seems to use it once or twice a year.
But I thought it was his home.
Oh, it is. But he seems to be abroad most of the time. 'Cause they do say he has a private income. He was only here 3 weeks last year. Had a girl with him then. Timber time it was. I remember 'cause we were picking fruit in the field across from the house. Always waving a towel or something from the window she was. Oh, I expect she was lonely. I would be too. Not a house to be seen. Here. It's 4 mile, yeah? This is only town corner.
All right. I'm sorry, it's important.
Are you awake? Dawson's gone, you see. He's going to the cinema in Halesbury. Please, don't struggle. I should like to have danced with you first, you know. It may sound frivolous, but I mean it. There's a certain communication involved there. Have you noticed how some couples have a much more highly developed intuition? They dance as one. There is instinctive anticipation. I used to be very good at ballroom dancing. These are my trophies. Once I reached the county finals with a girl. Her name was Beryl Harcourt. We were completely in sympathy, you see. That's why I made her the subject of my first experiment. After she'd gone, I used to play the gramophone in my bedroom for hours on end. We used to do speciality tango. There's a lot of jealousy and backbiting in those competitions, you know.
Operator, I want long distance. Broadhurst 3577.
You do see the point about the dancing. It's a kind of aptitude test. It shows which people are most sensitive to another's influence. And one night, as I danced alone, I suddenly felt Beryl was in my arms. It was colder, as if someone had opened a window. She seemed to be leading. I had no control. I was moving like a puppet. It was as if she was trying to tell me something with the steps. Then the record came to an end. I was afraid to move. I let the needle run on. But nothing happened. I remember standing there in the intense cold for almost an hour, while the record rasped on and on. I tried again, of course, week after week. It never happened again. You see, although she was there, she couldn't communicate with me. She couldn't experiment because she had an untrained mind, not like you. didn't even come to see me. It was some time since we danced professionally. There were 746 people reported missing that year. She was one of them. Dawson will be gone in the morning. When he gets back, I'll tell him that I've had to send you to a home, that our facilities here were not adequate for your treatment. Please, Alex, please. I want you to concentrate on the photograph. You know all about imprinting. I believe that just as we can imprint parenthood in the first few weeks of life, that in the same way, we can imprint just before death. My image is the last thing you'll see. And I'll be here in that chair every night. It's all right. It's only Mrs. Tyndall's ghost.
Get help anyway you like. Get some help. Let's come on around here quick.
Don't you realize this is possibly the greatest scientific experiment in its field that's ever been made? If we are successful, we change the whole concept of the psyche as such. Please, Mrs. Erickson, I beg you to concentrate on the photograph.
What are you up to? You've been having me on!
No violence, please, Dawson.
He was gonna drown me. No.
I wasn't to know this. He showed me those papers.
You don't realize what you've done.
You keep your distance!
Your stupidity has ruined a piece of unique research. I shall have to start again. All over again. It's criminal.
She's asleep.
Poor Sarah.
That was the CID man on the phone before. Pickering's dead.
Dead?
Killed himself in the ambulance, apparently. Seems he had a hat pin hidden on him somewhere. Spencer said it wasn't very nice, almost as if he was trying to torture himself. He was holding your photograph when he did it, apparently. Well, at least it'll save all that ghastly business of the trial. You sure you're all right? It's terribly hot in here. Do you mind if I open the window?
I'm cold. I'm very cold.